Now, you can say he had COVID. I don't care. He's the sitting president of the United States. For it to come out on personal stationery and then in a tweet, he endorses Kamala Harris, and now we're being told we're going to hear from him tomorrow night. That is just incredibly bizarre, and it is understandable why people speculate about what was really going on behind the scenes. The truth is that none of us really know what type of internal pressure was put on Joe Biden, what type of threats were made.
Dave Smith went on Piers Morgan, as well as a lot of other people, mostly woke lunatics on Piers Morgan here. And Dave Smith absolutely cooked them the entire time on this Piers Morgan Uncensored episode about many things. One being the Trump assassination, this upcoming election, many things they talked about here on this Piers Morgan Uncensored episode, where Dave Smith and Piers Morgan, like I said, absolutely cooks all of these woke lunatics on this panel. Let's get into this, where Dave Smith, who is becoming quickly one of my favorite personalities, one of my favorite pundits, I guess you could call him, in this space, for being able to call out all the nonsense, not just on the left and on the woke side. That's easy, but also calling out the nonsense on the right as well. In this video, he focuses on the left. Pretty, he goes pretty hard on them. So let's get into this clip here from Piers Morgan Uncensored of Dave Smith torching these woke lunatics on this panel.
Service dropped the ball in such spectacular fashion and left President Trump exposed so badly, which could have led to him being killed and should have done, really. It was a miracle that he survived, that the Director of Secret Service, Kim Cheadle, has today resigned or probably been fired.
A week late.
So that is probably where my main blame would go, is their failure to protect the president. Now, listen, hang on a second, Joe. We've got to say goodbye to Ben, to be respectful to his time.
Thanks,
Ben,
guys.
thank you very much indeed for coming back on Uncensored. I appreciate it. We're joined by Chris Murray from the Chris and Harry Unplugged, and I'll come to CJ Pearson as well. But Dave Smith, you've been sitting next to me here, even though we're looking down barrels of different cameras. You wanted to get in there. You were aghast about something. I'm not quite sure what it was.
Well, look, okay, there's just a couple things here. First of all, I do understand why people object to the use of the term coup. However, for Joe to say, well, this was just Joe Biden made a decision, that's pretty misleading also. The truth is that Joe Biden did make his decision. His decision was to stay in the race. He made this very, very clear. Up to Sunday morning, on the Sunday morning news shows, campaign surrogates were going out saying he's staying in the race. It's Biden versus Trump. Now, it's not exactly that he made a decision. Big donors and political operatives and the corporate press all turned their back on him and said, we are going to force your hand. And essentially, he was forced out. On top of that, look, I'm not claiming to know anything that we don't know. It is incredibly bizarre that the President of the United States of America, a few weeks out from the convention, decided to pull out of the race and did not address the nation.
It is 100% bizarre. I said this before, and look, I'm not claiming to know anything either. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I am just a crazy conspiracy theorist pointing out some weird things happening. It's weird that he dropped out so close to the convention, so close to the next election. And when you look at the events that happened prior in the lead up to this, you look at, they tried to throw Donald Trump in jail. That didn't work. They tried to, and I'm not saying who tried to, I'm not saying it was anybody in particular. I'm just saying someone tried to take Donald Trump out. That didn't work. Near miss, very near miss. And then a couple weeks or a week or a few days later, Joe Biden drops out of the race with a tweet, not addressing the nation on video, nothing. A tweet. And it's like a week after at this point, and he still hasn't addressed us. As of the time recording this video, he still hasn't addressed us by showing himself. He was on a fake video recording call. It wasn't even a video call, it was a phone call, a fake one, very obviously, with Kamala Harris, where she even slipped up and said, it's great to have you on this recording. Oops, I mean phone call. She said that during the call. And that's it. We've gotten a tweet that was very obviously not him. He doesn't run his Twitter account. And we got a fake phone call with Kamala Harris. We still haven't seen Joe Biden since he, quote unquote, dropped out. And it's just fishy to me that happened after a failed assassination attempt and after a failed attempt to throw Donald Trump in jail. Once they realized, oh crap, we might actually have to run against Trump, then Joe Biden got forced out of the race because they knew they weren't going to beat him with Joe Biden. That's what it looks like from my perspective. Just a crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. back to Dave Smith and Piers Morgan here.
Now, you can say he had COVID. I don't care. He's the sitting president of the United States. For it to come out on personal stationery and then in a tweet, he endorses Kamala Harris, and now we're being told we're going to hear from him tomorrow night. That is just incredibly bizarre, and it is understandable why people speculate about what was really going on behind the scenes. The truth is that none of us really know what type of internal pressure was put on Joe Biden, what type of threats were made. So the fact that people would speculate about that, I think, is totally reasonable. On the other point, the idea that Republicans would never question Donald Trump. He's their God emperor. They would never think about another nominee. The problem with this narrative from the left is that it just, reality flies in the face of it. Look, there was a National Review entire issue dedicated to never Trump in 2016. Mitt Romney, the previous nominee, came out and gave a speech. Anyone but Donald Trump. This year, all of the big donor money was going to DeSantis and Nikki Haley. All of the powerful forces within the Republican establishment have been trying to get anybody else except Donald Trump. The difference between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is that Donald Trump, however you feel about him, has tens of millions of Americans who love him and want him to be the nominee. And there's no Democrat who has anything like that.
I agree. CJ, let me bring in CJ, who's been waiting patiently. Hang on, Francesco, I'll come to you in a moment. CJ Pearson, can you tell me what brat means, given it's the word that's...
In 1 second, we're going to skip forward just a little bit to give back to Dave Smith here, because he said some very, very important things that I do want to talk about. Let's check this out here from Dave Smith, once again on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Smith, about one particular point. I saw one of the polls today, which was matching up Kamala Harris against Trump. Significantly, amongst young people, a big gap between them. And a lot of that people are putting down to the fact that young people actually did feel that what Trump did when he was shot was a remarkably ballsy thing. And it became a really big social media sort of emblem of defiance and strength and courage and all these things, which were things that maybe young people hadn't associated with Trump. But suddenly they saw this image of him punching the air, blood all over his face, surviving an assassination attempt. And they thought, you know what, that's, as Mark Zuckerberg said, probably the first time in his life, that was badass by Trump. How significant do you think the failed assassination attempt is going to be, particularly with young people?
Well, I think that it helped Donald Trump tremendously. I think it's one of those things where it's like I remember going to the opera with my wife, and I've never been to the opera before. But when you hear like an unbelievably talented singer at the opera, you're just like, whoa, that's incredible. It's almost an involuntary reaction. And there is something about seeing someone while there's bullets spraying, they don't even know if they're hit yet, and they're given the fist. Even if you despise Donald Trump, I think most people would admit, yeah, that was a good moment for him. He looked good there. I think to the point that you guys were making before, again, look, I'm a libertarian, and so I already know I'm going to lose. So I kind of have an advantage on some of you guys. Like, I'm not married to either side here, but I think people blind themselves with narratives when they're all in on one camp. And to hear you guys, the Democrats on the panel saying like, oh, the Republicans are in freak out mode or something like that. Guys, you literally just removed your candidate to go with another candidate after years of pretending that the emperor had clothes, while the rest of us were all talking about the guy who was clearly suffering through severe cognitive decline. Finally, you guys had to admit it. You pulled him out there. You're now going with a deeply unpopular vice presidential candidate. Look, good luck, but it's a big uphill battle. The fact is that the spin now is that it was just Joe Biden's age. That was the only issue that he slowed down. The truth is that if you look at every single poll, the two big issues here are the economy and immigration. I'm not a kid. I don't understand any of your black girl summer references. I don't know what brat means, okay? I'm a dad in my 40s. We've lived through, over the last couple of years, the worst price inflation in my life and the worst immigration crisis in my lifetime. This is a major problem. Kamala Harris is married to this administration, and Donald Trump's got a lot of red meat to run against. That's what this election's going to come down to, and it favors Trump.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, do you want to respond to that? Let me get Chris to respond, then I'll come to you, Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say, as a Gen Zer, I just disagree with this. This consistent notion that Kamala Harris is unpopular. Again, yesterday we saw the...
He 100% is unpopular, and people are obviously going to make it seem, they're going to do their absolute best to make it seem like Kamala Harris is popular. Like, I've seen a lot of tweets already that they're just manufactured, support of Kamala Harris, because obviously they want their side to win. They got to do something, right? They can't just bow out and accept defeat. They got to try at least. And I don't think it's going to work, but they got to try. Obviously, they're going to do their best to make Kamala Harris look likable and look like she's popular, but she, at the end of the day, is just one of the most unlikable human beings on planet Earth. I don't understand how anyone could possibly vote for her just off the simple fact of how she carries herself, how she acts. I can't stand the lady. I don't ever want to see her again. I just, you guys know, if you watch my stuff, Kamala Harris is like, to me, what Donald Trump is to leftists. She lives rent-free in my brain. I absolutely hate her. I don't have hate for many people. Cam Newton is one of them. Kamala Harris is the other. I'm a Saints fan, so I hated Cam Newton, and Kamala Harris is the other. I absolutely hate Kamala Harris. I can't stand her. So I don't understand how anyone can vote for her. I think even leftists, even a lot of people on the woke side, are not going to like Kamala Harris. And already don't like Kamala Harris, and understand she only has her position currently because she's a black woman, or a brown woman. I don't even think she's actually black, but she only has her position because of those reasons, to tick those boxes. And also, she's insufferable, absolutely insufferable. So I think Dave Smith is correct. All these leftists and these woke people on this Piers Morgan panel saying Republicans and right wingers are in full panic mode because Joe Biden just dropped out because he's senile and can't even walk upstairs. And now we have big bad Kamala Harris is coming. Nobody's worried about Kamala Harris. If Donald Trump was going to win against Joe Biden, he's going to win against Kamala Harris. The only thing that could stop Donald Trump is if something nefarious happens with the election, if something, if there's foul play involved. If there's no foul play, nothing nefarious happens, true and fair election, Donald Trump wins 10 times out of 10. In my opinion, and maybe I'm brainwashed, maybe I'm giving in to the mind virus as well, I think either Donald Trump wins or the elections are not fair, confirmed, in my opinion. That's what happens in this next election. Let me know in the comments what you thought about what Dave Smith had to say on Piers Morgan, just destroying these woke leftists. I was going to let this guy talk, but then I realized I really don't give a shit what comes out of this guy's mouth, because he obviously has a cat, and anyone who owns a cat, I don't think their opinion matters. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Dave Smith appearance on Piers Morgan.